Hello. I know, you're just as surprised as I am that we came back for round two. I don't have much else to say, but here are the books that I read in February. There's not as many as January because I had a little bit of a reading slump. I'm also not going to talk as much because that video was so long and my phone died like twice while filming it. So we're going to keep this nice and short and to the point. At the very end of January, I went to see Hadestown on tour. That was my first time like really listening to the whole album together because I knew I would like it, but I also knew it would hurt me because I'm a mythology person. That was perfect because I bought this book. I think I bought this when I was in New York for the first time because I knew I would love Hadestown, and I was just waiting until I could actually like sit down and listen to all the lyrics and watch it to read it. The first book I read in February was Working on a Song. This goes into a little bit about the lyrics of the show, also the different changes it made from its off-Broadway to its London to its tour to its Broadway final lyric production. It's gonna give me an ad so I can look at how to pronounce her name. I was right, Anaïs. Didn't actually go into a lot of like the meaning behind lyrics, which was what I was hoping to have it more be, but I do like that you get to see why something was changed and how they changed it. And I also like that Anaïs also gives credit where credit is due when someone else on the prod team or even one of the actors themselves had an idea to change a line, and how that ended up, even if it wasn't the final version, how it ended up having her get to the final version. So I really liked how it wasn't just her being like, I'm a lyrical genius, I'm so great at all these things. But I also do like that she was like, no, they are all poems that are then put to music. So that is also how she kind of created it. And I think that is just such a very fitting way to take when you're telling this story of this Greek epic, to, you know, something that was always told through poems, to like bring it in the modern day and kind of bring it back to that original art form. Just in Hadestown in general, a lot of people do the parallels between Orpheus in Hades and Eurydice and Persephone, but I feel like the bigger comparison personally to me is between Orpheus and Persephone and Eurydice in Hades. Eurydice seems more of like the scrappy, the harder exterior, and Orpheus is kind of like the more like spring-like kind character that Persephone is. Reading this also because it just makes you focus more on the lyrics themselves. Moving on, I didn't realize the parallels between the story of Orpheus and Eurydice to Adam and Eve, with the whole like bread and fruit vibe, and also like you need to trust the gods, and because you don't trust the gods, that is the punishment that therefore you and the rest of humanity shall reap. If you are someone who's into mythology or into musicals, or if you just really like Hadestown, I definitely recommend giving this one a read. I was going to attempt in February to do another like book bingo challenge, but I just did not feel any of the prompts because again, I'm a very mood reader. I'm not a TBR person. And I also, February is the shortest month, so why are you making me pack all of this into 1 month? One of the prompts on there was to read a cozy mystery, and again, that genre is not my vibe, so I didn't even know what, I had to like Google cozy mystery books because I had no clue, and I didn't want to read any of them, but I was still attempting to do this challenge. And so the book I picked for that was on my Kindle, and that was the Kamogawa Food Detectives, which is just a story about this father-daughter duo that runs this little restaurant that help people find recipes from their childhood or something like that that they can't remember. They like uncover all of these different things. So it's like a very cozy mystery in that sense. Duh, that's why I picked it for the prompt. It wasn't like my favorite, but it was cute. I just wasn't like super like invested in it, but it did kind of have the vibes of like an anthology TV show where every chapter focused on a different customer and a different food they were uncovering, and I could see that being, you know, like each episode focusing on one meal and one thing like that. Big part of this book is also the customers, the reasons that they're trying to get these foods, because they are craving this like memory that they had with a loved one in the past, whether it be like their mom or their grandparent or something like that. So I do like that it was all this nostalgic feel, but food as a connection to that person. Through it, the father and the daughter, they are missing their wife slash mom. That's a weird way to say it, but you know, someone in their family had passed on, and so through that, they are also helping themselves remember her, because each chapter kind of ends with them like circling back to, oh, mom would like this, she used to love the doing this, let's go here, she used to love when we went here. And I kind of like that while they were helping these other people connect with their loved ones, they were also doing that for themselves in the same way. This book though did make me so hungry, and I don't know if it was just because of the cover, but it made me so hungry for ramen and for tonkatsu. And I'm still hungry for ramen. I've been hungry for ramen since I read this at the beginning of the month, and I haven't had it. I need to go get ramen. The book is very like sensory describing, so it will make you hungry, so keep that in mind. The next book I read was also on my Kindle. This is Shari Franke's memoir, which is called The House of My Mother. The Franke family was a family that was very influencer based, so like kind of like family vlogging on YouTube and then onto TikTok. They got a lot of attention in the past few years just because a lot of things were found out about that family, specifically surrounding like the mom and like how they were treating the children within that family. This is Shari's memoir of her experience growing up as the oldest kid in that family. I knew a little bit about it because I was seeing a lot of it on TikTok when everything went down with like the mom being arrested, but I didn't know like a whole lot about it. And I'm really glad like that I was able to learn it from Shari's perspective, because even in the memoir she mentions so many people were so quick to try to make documentaries and videos about it, but they didn't know the whole story, and it felt weird to her that they were trying to monetize on something tragic that happened to her and her family. So I do like that, you know, if you want to learn more about it, definitely look at what they're doing, help support, you know, the kids that were affected by this. Also, it's like, you know, who's gonna know it better than somebody who was living that life. Very big I'm glad my mom died vibes, very descriptive, and just the situations are also very similar. It makes you realize that there are very little laws in place to protect children on social media. Social media is still so new, and the whole idea of like family vlogging and making money and being an influencer, there wasn't much done like legally to be able to help these kids. I'm just more so curious about how people were watching this at the time and like were upholding the mom as such this like, oh, this is such good parenting, when like I read it instantly, and even like the early things I was like, this is such a red flag. And obviously maybe that's because I was getting it from Shari's perspective. It's crazy to think that there are still people like this that do things like this, and there's people who think that this is okay and that this is model parenting. A very great memoir. The next book I read was The Son of Neptune, and actually this is a reread, but I haven't reread it since I was in high school, so it's about a 10 years later reread. I read Lost Hero a little bit in the fall, but I was waiting to read Son of Neptune because I know a lot of it centers around, you know, cold, like look at there, that's all snow. So I was waiting until it was like a little colder, a little snowier, because I was like, I can't read this in the middle of the summer. Like that's, the vibes aren't gonna match. Spoiler alert. Everybody, welcome back my son, Perseus Jackson. We missed you, we're glad you're back. I just really love Rick's universe and the characters he builds, especially Heroes of Olympus. I could read anything that he publishes, and I have, told by my whole Percy Jackson shelf down here. In the Percy Jackson series, it's all from Percy's perspective, so you only see how Percy sees the world, but in Heroes of Olympus, you get to see how other people see Percy. Yeah, he's pretty cool and he's pretty badass, but like he's just a little goofball. But then you see other people look at Percy and they're like, no, like he's scary. He's very intimidating. Hazel literally said when she first saw Percy, she thought he was a god. And it's just like, when you think of Percy, you're thinking just like, la 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 la, my name's Percy Jackson. But then like other people see him and they're kind of like, dude, don't get on his bad side. Hazel always thinking he's a god is always going to be funny to me. This is where we start getting into PTSD Percy Jackson. Specifically when he sees the giants that were in the Battle of Manhattan, and he like literally like shuts down. Obviously Percy's a very strong character, and I love that these little things are just like weaved throughout the story to show that like he's not invincible. The things that he's gone through have still affected him and are still affecting him. And that's why I just love that Heroes of Olympus is like Percy Jackson, but like a little bit more real, and that like we're not going to gloss over the issues that these characters are facing. That was Sun and Neptune. I'm probably going to wait to read the rest of the series, at least until like April, May-ish. The rest of it is very like summer vibes, so I'll probably pick these up in a few months. The reason for my reading slump is here. The last book I read this month was Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë. Again, I'm not a classics girly, but I'm trying to be. And isn't that worth something? I'm doing this because the Try Guys on their Patreon are having their staff do a monthly podcast where they talk about a classic that you need to or should read. And February's pick was Wuthering Heights. This book took me half the month to get through. And it just, obviously it's older language, and so like old books are hard to read just because we don't talk like that, you know. It's going to be hard to get into. Oh my gosh, it took me so long. I would try to read at least like a chapter every day, and then last night I was just like, I need to finish this before February ends because this is March 1st right now. And so I literally just like sat down. I was playing an audiobook while I read it, so I just had to like go to town on it. My overall vibe, it was okay. I didn't realize people claim this as a romance. It's not a romance. Like, Heathcliff, he thinks he's in his lover era, but he wants to be in his reputation era. But, like, he's kind of in his, you need to calm down, you're being too loud era. But Nellie is in her mastermind era. But that's, like, a whole other can of worms. I can't go into, like, analysis of this because we'll be here for 3 hours because there's just so much going on in here. I will tell you, I was gagged when I read Whatever Our Souls Are Made Of, His and Mine Are the Same. None of you were going to tell me that was from Wuthering Heights. You let me read that over and over again on Tumblr at the age of 12, and none of you were going to tell me that that was from Wuthering Heights. Everybody has the same name. Everyone's related to each other. Everyone is getting sick. And it's just like, this is why we need vaccines. Because like literally the amount of times people were sick and then died or were sick, and so they had to like stay inside for like 3 weeks. And I also know that a lot of that is because Emily Brontë was very much surrounded by death, especially growing up. So obviously that's gonna like slip into her writing, and that is how she viewed the world, was like, you get sick and then you die. I can't get over the amount of like incest but not incest that was in this book. You know, it's like, well, technically they're not, but to quote BuzzFeed Unsolved, anytime you have to say it's not incest technically, it isn't good. Like, I know he wasn't related by blood, but like it was the Fosters. The Fosters called, they want their plot back. Like, you have been brought into this family, you have been treated like your siblings. It was the Fosters, it was the Flash, it was Life with Derek. Like, there's a reason that all those shows ended, you know. Like, incest is not a good look, it's not cute. Again, I know like time differences and things like that. People married their cousin. Hey, let's stop trying to kiss our cousin, okay? It's 2025, let's stop trying to kiss our cousin. A lot of this is just because of like time differences, you know. Obviously I'm reading this in a very modern day and age. I can acknowledge that, but that still doesn't mean I super enjoyed all of that. It is a very interesting idea about how being looked down on and being pushed away from society can then lead you to reversing that, and then you yourself pushing away from society and looking down on society, and how that can harm yourself, but it can also harm those closest to you. I think that is very much kind of the vibe with Heathcliff, Even Whole. Like, he was treated like that, so then that is how he now treats all these other people. And even though it's like, if you were just to take them under your wing, like, you still could have gotten what you wanted, but because he was so fueled by like the revenge aspect, it was kind of like to his own detriment. And the other thing is just every time they mentioned Mr. Lockwood, all I could think about was Flint Lockwood from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. So these were the books that I read in February. Again, there were only about 5 or 6 of them. That was a lot lower than I was thinking of, but She was so hard to get through. I do not read classics, and I've already read 2 classics this year. So, like, just give me my degree in English literature already. What more do you want from me? This month, I do have some exciting things planned. Obviously, we are getting the release of the new Hunger Games book, so I'm very excited for that. And John Green's new book, which I'm so excited because I'm actually going to be going to Indianapolis to see him on his book tour. So I will be so excited, and hopefully, if I remember, I can film a little bit. 2 of my anticipated reads are being released on the same day, so pray for me. Bye!